Hi, Rex.
Hello. Hi.
Like I talked
Hey,
about.
It's cold.
Right. 'Cause I do my own. 2 hours.
And I listen to.
Look, he. Yeah.
In-person participation by the public is permitted, and remote electronic public participation is also available in the following ways. You can join the meeting electronically via Zoom, and that's a long thing that I'm supposed to. The meeting ID is 84. Electronic public participation is also note that in the following ways you can that covering will help. Yeah, on the feedback will help. But the ID meeting is 844-8. And dialing the location 1-669-900-728. Or you can join the meeting telephonically at 978-990-5000 with the code 550-802. Members of the dialing the location 1-669-900 wishing to speak may do so during join the meeting telephonically off pretty good. And so we'll public comment period, submit a written public comment card prior to the meeting. Email public comment cards can be submitted to the deputy city clerk, and email address is listed 6 p.m. on that day of the meetings. Comments will be distributed to the city council and made prior to the official minutes. Just bear with us through all this. Is all brand new technology tonight that we're all learning about. So okay, roll call. Comments will be distributed to the city council and made.
Councilmember Sims.
Just bear with us.
Here.
Councilmember Kleinfelder. Here. Councilmember Ackerman. Here. Vice Mayor Amoruso.
Here.
Mayor White.
Here.
Thank you.
And if we could stand for the flag salute. Here.
Councilmember Kleinfelder. Councilmember Ackerman.
of the United States of America,
Vice Mayor Amoruso. Mayor White.
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey. Invocation, I believe there is none. All right, guys. An approval of the city council special meeting agenda for October 7th, 2021.
Keep going.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the city council special meeting agenda of October 7th, 2021.
I'll second.
Roll call vote. Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Kleinfelder.
Aye.
Councilmember Ackerman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Amoruso.
Aye.
Mayor White.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. Legal counsel, let me know. I'm going to open special comment. Is that how I want to start it?
So, because this is a special meeting, members of the public are allowed to and invited to speak on the items on the agenda. So as the agenda items can come up, you could open up a public comment as to each item,
Okay.
but you can still read the admonition.
Okay, I'm going to open
So
up.
it'll apply to all items.
To open up public comment at a special meeting. Citizens wishing to address the council for any matter on the agenda may do so at this time. Under provisions of California Government Code, the city council is prohibited from material discussing or taking action on any item not on the agenda unless it can be demonstrated to be of an emergency nature or an urgent need to take immediate action arose after the posting of the agenda. Is there anyone who would like to speak in public comment?
This has to be for the specific items.
Also,
So as you go to each item, they can speak on those items rather than a general public comment period,
so in general public comment period, we don't have a general public comment
not for special meetings.
Okay.
It's for each item.
because it says public comment on the agenda.
I know that's the description. It's more for the advisory on that section.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then I'm sorry, John.
Sure. I guess I'm not welcome.
So just
technically, so thanks, John. Technically, when someone wants to speak and they're on the Zoom, all of our microphones have to be off, including yours there. That way, that's where that was coming from, is hearing and listening. So when they're ready to speak,
We take our
we
microphones
take
off.
our microphones off, and we should get that back.
Okay,
That's just the technical things we've worked through this as we go.
okay. So moving on to public hearings. I hereby open the public hearing for 4.1 initial study and environmental determination for the proposed Greeley subdivision and 49 Village RV Resort expansion project. And Councilmember Sims.
Thank you, Mayor. On advice of council and after careful deliberation, I have to recuse myself from review and consideration of the Greeley Ranch subdivision and RV expansion project. I made this decision after consultation with both the city attorney and the FPPC. Although it is clear I do not have a real property conflict of interest, as evidenced by the FPPC advice letter, I am still restricted under common law conflict rules due to a prior transaction involving this property. I want to thank our city attorney for his diligent research and follow-up with the FPPC on this matter. I look forward to my continuing service to the residents of Plymouth. Thank you.
Does someone have his phone number to call him or?
Okay. So by turning it over to Eric.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and City Council. Tonight in front of you is the initial study and environmental determination for the Greeley Ranch Trust and 49er Village RV Resort proposed subdivision and development. I'll refer to it as the project from here out, if that's okay. The city has received an application for a project for a proposed subdivision and development of 161 approximately 161 acres. The application includes amendments to the city's general plan, zoning map, approvals of a tentative subdivision map, conditional approval, conditional use permit, and a development agreement. The project is kind of a mixed use project, one being a residential development with which is approximately 234 single family homes. This also includes park space, stormwater retention basins, landscape corridors, greenways, and common areas. That will be accessed off of Zinfandel Parkway and Old Sacramento Road. The other portion of the project is an expansion to the 49er RV Resort Village, which will include 214 new vacation and RV sites. It will also include a clubhouse, a guest pool area, a patio, outdoor gathering space, meeting areas, showers, and restrooms. Per our city's municipal code, an initial study and environmental determination, the city planner is required to complete an initial study. The initial study is included in your packet. The purpose of the initial study is to help to determine what the appropriate level of environmental review is. The initial study checklist is part of CEQA. There are about, I think it's 13 different categories. You go through and do kind of a brief review of what the potential impacts could be to things like the biology, traffic, public services, things like that. Based on the information gathered in the initial study, it helps to determine what level of environmental review is required. For example, either a mitigated neg deck or an environmental impact report.
To the members of the council.
Based on the initial study, staff is recommending that an environmental impact report be completed and a single environmental impact report be completed for this project. CEQA prohibits projects from being piecemealed or segmented. If the project was separated into two components, it would potentially allow the lead agency to minimize the apparent environmental impacts of the project, which would could potentially result in.
Hey, Aaron, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you real quick.
Okay.
I hear people on the telephone telling me that they cannot hear us. And does this microphone need to be on?
On the
No,
telephone.
that microphone only shows what you guys say. So it's on, is the volume up?
It's not very loud.
Hello, on the telephone, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Hopefully that fixes the audio issue. Sorry about that, Aaron.
And let them know that they can join us on Zoom, that the address is on our website.
That is much better.
Okay, and you can join us on Zoom too. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Aaron.
Okay, so as I was saying, recommending a single EIR versus two EIRs because there's potential that in that evaluation, if we did this two EIRs for two separate projects, the impacts could appear to be less than significant, which together they would be significant. So that is why we are recommending a single EIR for this single project, and because the applicant has applied for a single project, which is this kind of mixed use of residential and then the RV expansion. So if staff accepts, if the city council accepts staff recommendation and determines that an EIR should be prepared, next step would be to notify the applicant and to start work on securing a consultant to complete the work. Staff will publish a request for proposals. Also, staff will prepare a notice of preparation notifying concerned public and private agencies and individuals that our draft EIR is being prepared. The notice will give a 30-day period for comments to be submitted to the city. We'll also be holding a second scoping meeting sometime during that 30-day period to again collect comments. We did one of these during the summer to start the process and start to collect comments from people to identify potential environmental impacts. So during that time, we'll be collecting the proposals for the professional services, and we'll review the proposals and select the best qualified consultant. That contract will then be brought back to the city council for approval. And once that is done, we would get the consultant started working on this. I anticipate that would happen by about the end of the year. And if we can stick to this timeline, the EIR work should start at the beginning of 2022, and it is anticipated to take about 6 to 8 months to complete. So it's kind of, we have two review parallel things happening at this point. The environmental consultant is working on the EIR while city staff and the city attorney continue to work on things like the development agreement and all the final details of their actual application package. This is all in preparation then to bring it back to the public for first the planning commission and then city council for public hearing for review, comments, and in a decision. So I anticipate that would be happening probably about a year from now. Yeah, so staff's recommendation tonight is that city council accept the initial study and the EIR environmental determination and allow staff to go out and proceed with seeking proposals for consultants to put together an environmental impact report for the project. That concludes my presentation. If you have any other questions about this, feel free to ask.
I see a lot of faces here, so I'm assuming that some of those faces are definitely, so I'm gonna open up public comment and then we'll come back to council. I'm sure we'll ask you plenty of questions. Just because I see so many faces, I want to advise if we can keep it quick as possible. Yeah, 3 minutes, but definitely to the point and all that stuff, just so everyone gets an opportunity to address their concerns and everything else.
Mr. Mayor, since this is the first time for Zoom, we'll do the same way you had done in the past. You'll ask to see if there's anything from the clerk. Make sure there's no one on the phone who wants to talk about it. Then we'll go to Dana and we'll look at who's on Zoom to see who on Zoom would like to speak. And then we'll get everybody there. But we're going to ask for some patience as we go through this process.
Okay, so I'm going to start with public comment here at City Hall.
Good evening, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen. First off, I was wondering why the special meeting. Usually, I'm amazed that they have a special meeting with 8 items on it. And all the special meetings I've attended have been for single items. What's the purpose for or need for a special meeting?
I think one explanation, John, would be that the council had requested waiting until the FPPC made a determination over conflict of interest. So then, when that came through, it was scheduled, this public hearing was scheduled at the first possible date that accommodated everyone's schedule. Is that correct?
But I was wondering why we have 7 other items on the agenda.
I can tell you why, John, because we as staff and the mayor decided we could accomplish more on this day by having it here. Also, we didn't have a meeting on the 23rd of September, and we had things that needed to go there, so that's why. So this agenda is a good agenda, it's why.
Okay. I have 3 items I was concerned about on this public hearing. One, I did submit a letter the last 2 times this was noticed, and I hope you have that before you or have had the opportunity to read it, because I see that in the staff report it's not included. The first off is the thing of she mentioned the reasons for doing a singular EIR. Still, it's a situation where it's 2 different projects, and secondly, it's under 2 different jurisdictions. And it would be like us trying to do an EIR on the casino property, as an example. We don't have the jurisdiction over that. And we don't have the jurisdiction over the 49er trailer court. The only thing that we have with the 49er trailer court is we can sell things for them, to them like our water, or take contract on the sewer, but we have no other involvement with the 49er trailer court. So it's completely out of our jurisdiction. And so I think to try to do one EIR for the 2 projects under 2 jurisdictions is just unrealistic and not even legal. And I hope that somebody contacted the state to see that they were willing to have the EIR done on the property that's under their jurisdiction. The second thing that's happened is I've heard, from several members of the council over and over in the last 6 months about the need for an updated general plan. And that keeps coming up, but it doesn't make it on the agenda. I'd like to see this council tonight take a vote on the future agenda items to see if they want the general plan updated or not. And if they do, they need to do that prior to going out and doing an EIR on something that may very well change. And there is problems with the general plan. We do have, we're in conflict with the existing general plan, just on the growth proportion of that general plan, amongst other things. So we need to update that general plan. And if you're going to do it, you got to do it before you do this, because you got the cart before the horse if you don't. And that's an important thing that we get. All the involvement with the city has and infrastructure and everything straightened out and updated. It's been 13 years, almost 14 years now, since the general plan was put in place. You usually try to update those on a 10-year basis. The third thing that I want to talk about again is the water. You're the CEO, the head of the water agency, was here and said at this podium, said the water agency does not have the ability to furnish the water for this facilities with the current commitments they already have with Citadel and Shadow Ridge, that they couldn't furnish the water today. You need to, before you go keep moving forward and costing these developers a lot of money to do work that may be not needed, you need to get a will serve letter from the water agency if they can provide the water. And at what cost? And if surely they can provide the water, they have the water availability, they don't have the treatment capacity. But how do they get that treatment capacity is critically and important to this project.
Okay, that's 3 minutes. Moving on to the next.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, I guess.
Can I ask staff or anybody who's willing to address Mr. Colburn's comments about and answer why we're doing the EIR for the 49er park if it's not under our jurisdiction, according to Mr. Colburn, and then also address his comments regarding the need to update the general plan prior to doing the EIR. Is there somebody who could address that? Thank you. One more thing, minor point. I do apologize, Aaron. When you started your staff report, I was shuffling here because I had the wrong agenda packet. So I apologize for not paying attention there.
So first question, the jurisdiction, well, the land that the project is on is within the city of Plymouth. I believe that the existing 49er park HCD has jurisdiction over what is built there because there are some modular type homes on the property. I don't know that the new expansion will have those types of homes, and they are not merging the properties. They're not merging it into one lot. So as the lead agency with the property in our jurisdiction, the land in our jurisdiction, we would still be the lead agency on this project. The second was the general plan. General plans are typically updated maybe every 15 to 25 years. They're very costly to do. Also, since our general plan was done, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, there really hasn't been that much development in the city of Plymouth that would change which direction we are going. There's only been one development, which is in Pendle Ridge, so we've added, how many houses are out there, 50 or 60 to the city. It's not that we've doubled in size and that our general plan has now become obsolete.
And can I add that the will serve from Amber County Water Agency also took in these projects back when we signed the contract with them. So that's kind of a misnomer that we don't have will serve for this water. These projects were all in the books long ago and came off the books because of the 2008 and 2009 crash. There was Cottage Knoll, there were several other projects that happened, and all that was will serve from Amber County Water Agency at the time. So nothing's changed. So our will serve still stands.
Okay, Jim, sorry about that.
No. Did we answer all your questions, Councilmember? Okay.
Thank you. My name is Jim Wise. I'm a resident of Plymouth here. I live up in Pendle Ridge. And first of all, I want to kind of associate myself with a number of the comments that Mr. Colburn made. I would offer the observation, first of all, that I think since the general plan was adopted over a decade ago, the fact that Pendle Ridge has come online is a significant economic driver within the community, and with the potential of having the additional phases coming online, the implications of what that means for the city of Plymouth is significant, both in terms of the demands that could be realized by the city from water, from demands on services, to a number of other city considerations is significant. And while I think Aaron is correct that most city plans don't get reviewed or general plans get reviewed for 15 years, in this instance, because of the size of Plymouth and because of the impact that a development of this nature has had on a community of this size, I do think that it really cries out for a review of the general plan to ensure that what we're doing moving forward is indeed appropriate with the underlying premise of why the general plan was there in the first place. With regard to the EIR question, which is most eminent in front of us, I just have a point of inquiry, if I can ask this. Does CEQA specifically, either administratively or statutorily, prohibit a bifurcation of an EIR for a specific project? Can you do 2 EIRs as part of a specific project? I don't know the answer to that, but I would just like to pose the question. Is there a specific prohibition against that?
We'll go ahead and let you finish your public comment, and then we can answer those things.
Because my point would be this. I think that the nature of the 2 elements of the totality of the development are so significantly different. On the residential side, the demands that are going to be imposed upon city services, everything from education and schooling to water considerations, is so fundamentally different than what you're looking at in terms of commercial consideration for the expansion of an RV park. And I know that there have been a number of letters that have been submitted to the city on this very issue by citizens that have pointed out that similar bifurcation of considerations and needs, and have requested a dual EIR. And I would just associate myself with those remarks for your citizens. I thank you for the time.
Thank you, Jim.
Let's shut that off, please. Mr. Mayor and Council, would you like us to see if we can answer that?
Yes, please.
I have another question that I'd like to ask before you answer that, and to staff, and then also to Mr. Colbert and Mr. Weiss. Throughout this, I'm hearing the terms when it comes to the general plan update, and then the other term, general plan review. To me, there's a difference. The update sounds like it's something that's done, like you say, every 15 to 20 years and is costly. So I guess my question just so I'm clear on what you're asking, are you asking for that? Are you suggesting that type of an update, or more of a review that the council does? Can somebody answer that for me? Try to answer that.
I think it's up to the staff to answer that, not the citizens that's in the audience to answer that.
And I'm wondering from their perspective, what they're
thinking,
what they're wanting.
I'm gonna go ahead and answer the 2-part EIR. So we do have there is some case study that shows that where cities have split them apart, and then there have been legal consequences then for doing that. So CEQA does require that you don't split them apart, because the impacts could appear less than significant. Also, the applicant is the one who gives us the project description. What is the project? The project is one project. It is a expansion of the RV park and a residential subdivision. They have not applied for it as 2 separate projects. They've applied for it as a single project. So that is the reason that it is being looked at as a single project. General plan review or update, I think I'm getting the sense from the people I'm hearing that, that have asked about the review and update, that it's more of a comprehensive update of the general plan. And Frank maybe can help out with this one, but I don't believe that the city can discontinue processing an application because it appears our documents are out of date, which a 10 to 12-year-old general plan in the planning world is not considered out of date. I hear and I understand that Plymouth has changed in those years, but we can't just stop processing applications because the document is old. Frank, would you support me on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's generally true. Yes, that's true.
So the council, we've had people, primarily folks newer to the council, and stuff, ask if they could have a general plan update, things like that. If that's the wishes of the council, we can put it on the agenda. We can come back with some ideas of what the cost would be. It's into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. We don't have it. I think, actually, I'm not 100% sure, but we could still be paying off the last one. We haven't paid for the one we did before. Also, every time something comes into the community that we need to look at, let's say we're going to have something else come to town, not this project, something else, where the zoning is and things like that. Those things are brought to the planning commission and brought up to the council to change at that time in real time, a real photo of what's taking place then. So could we do it? Absolutely. You folks will have to make that decision. If that's what you want on the agenda, and that is the direction I get, then we'll do it. But that is why we haven't done it. That's why other past councils haven't done it. And I think we probably have people here that have been on the council in the past that will tell you, it's very expensive. It's timely. It is important, but you need to really forecast ahead when you want to do that.
I might add that the Zinfandel project and the Ridge were two separate projects and done under one EIR originally,
Yes.
which that's the closest and nearest to this development, you know, to compare to. So it's not out of ordinary. It's not, you know, it's unordinary for this to happen. And this kind of, you know.
Okay, anyone else here that would like to speak? Any public comment?
Get one bite of that.
I did reach my limit before, but with the first minute I'm discussing about the meeting. My one quick question is, when are the nexus studies been updated?
That's not really.
Okay, that's not on the agenda, John.
Everybody shut that mic off.
Here. Okay. No more public comment here at City Hall. I let John come up, so Jim, I guess I gotta let you come up.
I appreciate the comment. I believe that the underlying premise behind CEQA for not wanting to do a bifurcation on a single project is to ensure that there is no minimization of the totality of the environmental impact of the overall project. It makes sense to me. I believe, however, that if you've got a project that has such diverse approaches to things, that the council, in the direction of how the EIR goes, to ensure that one element of the EIR absolutely encompasses and reflects the findings of the other EIRs for the totality of the potential minimization of environmental impact. That'd be only other observation of me.
There's lots of projects out there that take in many different kinds of things, you know, i.e. shopping centers, residential. So I mean, this is what they're at, what's happening asked for is not, you know, uncommon.
Okay, I'm going to the telephone now. Okay, is there anyone on the telephone that would like to speak during public comment? Going once. Going twice. I'm on the telephone. Okay. So now I'm gonna close the telephone and we're gonna go over to Zoom and see how this works. So I will read this little, the raise hand on Zoom. If you can use the raise hand button on Zoom. And we're trying to get our way through this.
All right, so we have Mara Fee that wants to speak. Give us just a moment to get
Okay,
working. And if we can turn these off.
All mics are on.
all mics need to go off, I guess.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Wow, so much power. You're all shut up and I get to speak. No, sorry. I just have a simple question, actually. So I got that the draft EIR will be out for public review in about a year, but I missed when the next scoping meetings are planned. Did I hear next summer? That seems really far away.
You know what then?
I think that's my only question for now. So I'll mute myself again.
So we'll recap the question. She wanted to know whether or not when the next scoping meeting was. Go ahead and mute her at this point. Okay. So the question was about the scoping meeting. Will Aaron answer that because then there is a specific schedule there. That's not it.
No, the next scoping meeting will be planned for about 30-ish days out from here for when this we're given the go-ahead to move forward with the project. So yeah, and as we come up to the holiday months, we're gonna try to get it in before then.
Can we provide everyone a date as soon as possible because of the holidays and everything that's going on? And then there will be a 30-day comment period after the scoping session again, correct?
Yes. Or the scoping session is in the middle of the 30-day comment period, or sometime within that 30-day comment period. So notice of preparation will be the first thing that goes out. And then that is what starts that 30 days. And during that 30 days, we'll hold a scoping meeting and collect comments there and written comments, and then wrap that up and use those comments to then continue forward with the EIR.
Then can we be very, very careful to make sure people know when that first day of comment period is and when the last is?
To help you on that, if you go to our city webpage, there's already a Greeley page. It's a page dedicated to this. It has been there since we started. All the dates are on there. We will make sure those dates are correct. We will also, through Facebook and Instagram, remind people to go to Facebook and look at it. We also will publish it here. We'll have it available here. So there shouldn't be any question what's happening, when it's happening. And we can change those things in real time based upon circumstances that were to come up. So, and that's something we are doing with this project and the water project coming up, things like that. So.
Okay, we are still with Zoom. If someone else wants to speak during public comment in Zoom, do the raise your hand button.
We don't see anyone else.
Okay, so I would go one more time around. That'll cover that 1 minute gap that we're supposed to have.
Good, go one more time around.
If you're not to somebody,
Anyone else in person, on the phone, and Zoom?
Is there anyone else in person? Is there anyone else on the phone that would like to speak during public comment? Okay. And there's still no one on Zoom? And there's no emails?
Receive any.
Then you close the public hearing.
Okay, we're gonna close the public hearing. Okay, now questions, comments, concerns of the council. We'll start with, I always start down on this end. I'm gonna start down on this end. Councilmember Ackerland, questions, comments?
A couple of questions regarding the request for proposal. How will you seek those proposals, or how will you publish those proposals? And then once the proposals have been received, how would we have an opportunity to get more information on the proposals that come in and have an opportunity to review those?
So we will send out the RFPs to different environmental firms locally, ones that we've worked with or other jurisdictions work with. And as proposed, staff will be reviewing the proposals and bringing the best one to the city council.
And I just want to say thank you to the city staff for all their due diligence and everything going through this process. It's not easy, and it's been quite the process, I must say. So, keep good work and, keeping your eye on, protecting our citizens and our city with everything you're doing to hopefully get us through this process somewhat seamlessly.
Mary Ann, I saw that you were reaching for your button again. I didn't know.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to be clear, Aaron, and thank you for that. So will the request for proposals be published anywhere?
Yes, we'll put it on our website. I don't believe there is we will put them anywhere that we would put like an engineering type request for proposal. And then also mail them to certain firms that we either worked with or know of or in the area.
Councilmember Abrams,
I don't need double dip.
you good?
I don't need to double dip.
Oh, I'm good.
Oh, I'm good for now.
Okay. Councilmember Kleinfelter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a couple of comments about the initial study, Aaron. I was hoping, like in section 1.1, where there's a description of current land use and then what is proposed land use. If we could have had 2 maps where people can look at it very easily and see what those changes were, I think that would have been helpful. I think under number 2, section E, it says no impact. And I was surprised by that because it is a conversion of ag land. And I do consider that, since that is the question, I consider that at least somehow significant. We're converting ag land to RV spaces and houses. So I think that the initial study doesn't mention anywhere, and it's not required to, I'm sure, but we have significant land use changes in state law. And it seems like somewhere we should address or have a comment addressing ADUs as a potential impact, because now anytime you're creating a new lot, you're potentially creating 4 new houses or 3 new houses. So it is, that's a significant finding and something that should be addressed. I understand Mr. Coburn's comments during the public hearing section. I would have liked to have had his letter in the packet. I hope it is included in the record for this public hearing. I think that 16A, where we don't recognize the Veterans Park as a park, I do understand that our current land use is not considering it a park, but it is being planned as a park, probably will be a park, or will change it to that type of use before this project. So could we include something like that in the EIR? On 20D, it addresses draining changes. And I know it's the section 20D is referring to like wildland fire, and if there was a landslide risk from any of the slopes. But I also want to know if that section covers, or any of the other sections cover, drainage changes because of grading, which should be addressed in an initial study and an EIR. So, and the other issue I have is I am completely with Council Member Ackerland in that I would have liked to have seen a publication list of who is going to be delivered to. And I would like to have seen a draft RFP, because we started out this process not in the best light, and I just want to make sure that we cover ourselves very, very carefully from now on.
I think some of the concerns that you brought up in the initial study that we covered in the EIR, and that's the purpose of the EIR, to dive deeper into some of these impacts. And so we'll make sure that when the EIR comes and when they're looking at that those types of things are all studied.
I think that that's not entirely accurate, because the EIR is going to reflect what is currently in the initial study. That's why the initial study exists. So whoever the consultant is going to take the initial study, and that's what they're going to be diving into in the EIR. Unless we include those things that we feel could be an issue, then we are not having an adequate EIR.
And so part of that is that some of the information that we collected, things like the scoping meeting, when the notice of preparation is sent out. So there are certain things that only people that live next to the property would know what a potential impact would be or what environmental issue is there. And so that's the opportunity to collect that type of information.
Also, I want to add real quick, and I want to make sure, and Frank will clear it up if I say it wrong. This is a checklist. This isn't the document they use for the EIR.
No.
So that comes later, and the scoping sessions help with that too.
Yes.
So even though you're right, and I just asked, could we just go back, just make it easier and mark this box? It wouldn't make any difference. It makes a difference for you folks to see it this way, but it doesn't make a difference when they do the EIR, because they look at it, they look at all those things. They don't look at it and say, oh, they're not gonna have any wildfires. They'll still look at that. They still have to do it. This was a checklist. The more things you get checked, the more likely it is Aaron has to bring it to you. So that's why they have to check. So did I get that close?
It's a checklist, just like you said, to figure out what environmental document level review is needed. Frankly, it wasn't needed in this case because the applicant has already requested the EIR, and from the city's perspective, you shouldn't have any argument with that because you always want to do the most intensive environmental review. And for a project like this, it would be unprecedented not to do an EIR. So that checklist gets us to that. But if the environmental consultant is worth his or her spit, they will review everything soup to nuts. It's an excellent point. And the scoping sessions, which we're having a second, well, we're required to have one, we're having a second one to make sure good constructive feedback like that is informed in the EIR process. But the EIR consultant, again, if the EIR consultant's worth its spit, will look at all that stuff.
Thank you, Frank. I had two more items that I got off on a roll. I understand preparing one EIR and one initial study, but I think in the EIR, the possibility that these projects would at some point become untethered should be addressed, or at least recognize and discuss the different aspects of the two projects very clearly. So we are recognizing that all of the aspects of projects in the EIR. And my other thing is, I would really like, are we having a meeting next Thursday? And if it's possible, Aaron, could we see next Thursday the draft RFP?
If this is approved, then we move forward with getting those things. I don't know if you have, I'm not sure if we have it done by Thursday.
Yeah.
She wanted, frankly, I'll fall on my sword. She wanted it done already, but it's sitting on my desk, so I'll take those sword over that.
So, and then I'll hop in and say, depending on how this goes, and if it moves forward, then we can craft that and put that on the agenda. That agenda is very light for Johnson.
Thank you.
The big thing that I keep on hearing is what this project's going to turn into, and with it. Right now, we're not talking multiple pieces of land, we're talking one piece of land. And I just want to make sure I'm correct on that. Okay,
Yeah.
That's kind of my big question on that. I see Frank. Oh, yeah, okay.
I'm gonna let it die.
Okay. Okay, yes.
I want to add, and I want to emphasize, and I think it's very important, and maybe tonight is not the time to really discuss it. Maybe next week when we get more into the RFP, but I emphasize that I would like to see that request that the RFP go out and have the net cast very wide. I understand that it's going to be made available to firms that you are familiar with, firms that you have worked with, firms that you know of. But I want to see firms that are out there that we don't know of have the opportunity to submit proposals. There might be firms that are that are small businesses, owned by minorities, owned by women. I want to make sure that many firms have the opportunity to submit a proposal.
Okay. Any more from the council? Okay, what's the wishes of the council? Here, you want my agenda?
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion to accept the initial study, recognizing a lot of the public and council comments for this evening and proceed on the next steps for the EIR. Is that adequate, Frank?
Yes.
Sure, I'll second.
Roll call vote. Councilmember Sibley recused himself. Councilmember Kleinfelder,
Aye.
Councilmember Ackerland,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Amoruso.
Aye.
Mayor White.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes 4 with 1.
Do we have call?
We got decisions.
For some reason, my email is not working on this. So I couldn't pull it up.
I keep on asking for,
This Maria says, do you want me to do your packet? I said, I can just bring my iPad to pull it up. For some reason, my email won't open.
well, I know, the one that got sent on my email.
Yeah.
Do something unofficially and give you a little bit of a shout out in a way. I apologize, but you got 30 seconds. We've been having issues up there with water pressure. The ridge. The last 2 weeks I've been monitoring. I'm just gonna say, we've improved. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, then you can talk.
I just wanted to give you a shout out and say, I'm reading 50 PSI right now. I don't know what's going on. Thank you. Keep it up. That's all I wanted to say.
We got our mics on.
Because the greasy wheel, the noisy wheel gets the grease, yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Jim. We'll continue to talk about this.
Okay.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, maybe I can take a second while we wait for him to kind of explain the process of the Zoom stuff. Feedback is coming back, I believe, because it's also on YouTube at the same time.
Oh, okay.
That's not it. Well,
We're gonna figure it out.
We're going to.
I appreciate the efforts though.
Yes.
I really do.
We did it once without feedback, right?
No, ask Peter. Peter.
There was no feedback here.
We don't.
It worked really well.
Okay. Hold on.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like we have a consent calendar.
5.9.
Huh?
5.
I understand we're at 5 here.
So what I would recommend, Mr. Mayor, on this one is to move to the consent calendar, open opportunity for public comment on the phone, in person, and via Zoom.
Okay,
And then you can read the consent calendar agenda items, and then double back if there's any public comment.
we're gonna, so open up public comment now. Consent calendar. So I'm opening up public comment.
To give people opportunity to register.
All matters listed under the consent calendar to be considered routine by the city council and will be impacted by one motion and a form listed. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless before the city council votes on a motion to adopt. members of the council staff or public request specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. Okay, and approval of the meeting, September 9th, 2021, approval of special events staff support funding for up to 2,500 for an October 30th, 2021 fall Halloween event, and up to 2,500 for a December 4th, 2021 Christmas holiday event, and approved letters to send on the behalf of City Council to Senators Feinstein and Padilla and House Representatives McClintock seeking consideration to address needs for sewer and water structure. Okay, we'll start with public comment here. Is there any public comment here? Second. Going once, going twice. Is there any public comment on the telephone? Going once, going twice. And is there any public comment on Zoom? Use the raise your hand button if there is. I don't see a raise your hand. Should I go back through it one more time? Okay, get me in the habit of it. Public comment here at City Hall. Public comment on the telephone. Okay, and public comment on Zoom by using the raise your hand button. Okay, and there was no text or email?
Right.
Okay, is there any questions, comments? Public comment is closed. Is there any questions, comments from council?
I had a comment regarding the minutes. On item number 6 of the minutes, it was the public hearing that we just held was agendized for that meeting as well. And council member Marianne Ackerland had recused herself and wasn't in the room. She was on the phone, but had hung up the
Yes.
phone, so she could not have made the second to the motion. And then we didn't call her back until after that motion had been made. And we decided that she was eligible to vote on that issue. So if we could correct that, find out, go back to the tape, find out who made the second and fix that, then I'll be satisfied with the minutes. But having them clear is important. Is that your recollection, Marianne?
I knew you were gonna ask me that. I thought I came back for that part of
You
the
did.
discussion. But I agree, it's not reflected in the minutes that I came back. So it does look like I recused myself, which I did. And then how would I?
I think we will do as amended, so we'll do it, that you left, and then you came back, didn't it?
All I can remember is when I called you back, or when we called you back up, you went, oh, that was good. Oh,
You guys
called.
couldn't figure it out.
I'm sorry.
I called you back.
Right, you did.
Well, but when you, so to be clear, we will, when you do this, we are asking that you guys do this, that you do the minutes as amended. That's what it is.
Okay, I had a small request on 5.2, and Frank can let us know if we can do that under this section, or if I need to pull it for discussion. But I'd like to change the word funding to the word grant. So there's accountability afterwards, and we're giving the money directly to the Rotary.
With receipts.
They provide us with the accounting and receipts. No money going to individuals goes to the Rotary. So if we put a grant to the Rotary, then it makes it much more clear and clean.
That's what I would make. you want to make a small tweak to that, that's fine. I mean, there's inherent accountability to your hard receipts, that's what you get anyway, so it either word is fine.
And I think, didn't we do kind of the same thing last year? As if I recall. Or a very similar thing,
Well, we did for Christmas. Yeah,
not for Halloween though.
but I hear what you're saying. Councilman, right? We can change that word. It is a grant to them, but we're funding it up to a certain dollar amount.
Right, but the confusion was in the staff report. Because the staff report referred to providing reimbursement to individuals.
Well, this
Instead of-
that would
then-
require a receipt. It wouldn't be for, I'll give you an example. I don't know about this, but they have a budget that came with it. Let's talk about the Christmas one. If we have one of our ambassadors go out and buy Christmas lights on their own, they're not, they would have to bring a receipt. We're not giving them that expense.
This should be run, if it's to the Rotary from the TOT, it should go to the Rotary and the Rotary will reimburse
Yeah.
grants.
Okay, any more comments?
What's the, which is.
Oh,
A
sorry.
question about the minutes. It has public comment that Brian and Edo spoke. It has also that John Colburn spoke. We received a letter that happened to be from my husband, but I don't see that noted in the minutes. Shouldn't that be noted in the minutes for September 9th?
Yeah, under public comment.
But I also brought it for Keith to read into the section when we get there as part of the record, if that would be sufficient.
For tonight? Okay.
Okay,
I see. I just want to make sure that whatever direction we have is clear and that this council's comfortable with it, that's all. I don't know if there's any other issues.
So the council got the letter. Everybody got it. I think what you're asking is you just want it to reflect in here that the letter was received. We can do that. To read it in again, I don't believe that serves a purpose.
It was never read, it was
Unless-
just handed to council, it was never made part of the record. That's what she's saying.
Well, it was part of the record in the sense it was distributed to council and made available to the public as something that was part of the material submitted to council after the agenda was posted. I think what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is I want the minutes to reflect that that was part of the record.
Correct, as far as that's what I'm asking, but prior to this, how is it available for the public to review it?
So typically when the council receives items after the agenda, the deputy clerk will provide those to council at the dais if they get it the same day or whatever logistics. And then you want to make copies available in the room for the public to review. And then, they can also be made available, noted in the record.
And then afterwards, if someone were to come in 2 days later, they say, oh, I listened to the meeting, but what's this record? And Maria has that to show that. It's there for the public to either see at the time that it's taking place or after. It's part of the record. I hear what you're saying, and I agree. That needs to change that it was part of the public record. Then that gives the clue to people to ask more questions.
And obviously not just for his letter, but I know we have received other emails.
So we work it all the same way. We could get emails at 6:30, technically, we could get one at 6:30. And the clerk would not have an opportunity to make copies for everybody, but she would forward it. We have other citizens who send things to us days ahead and say, make sure the council sees this. Make sure that's available. So it's all time. Get them in Wednesday prior to the next council meeting. It can actually be included.
And I'm looking at where it says before 6 p.m. Because email comments can be submitted to the deputy city clerk before 6 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Comments will be distributed to city council and made part of the official minutes.
Correct.
We do that, yes, not in here, so to answer that question, it's not there, Maria will amend that minute.
I had one more little nitpicky thing, and it happens a lot. It's a it happens all the time. But in the letter to our senators, it refers to USDA, and it should say USDA RD. Clear which box of theirs we're in.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
I make a motion with all the changes that were asked for. I'm not getting into it. Yeah, to be amended.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Roll call vote. Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Kleinfelder.
Aye.
Councilmember Egerland.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Maruso.
Aye.
Mayor White.
Aye.
Thank you. That's present.
Okay, regular agenda items. AB 361 presentation and resolution 2021-09, making the required findings authorizing remote teleconference virtual meetings of the legislative body of the city of Plymouth.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, council members. This is going to be a brief presentation on AB 361. It was urgency legislation the governor signed. And that went into effect October 1. It effectively replaced what this city council, a lot of cities throughout California have been operating under, which was the executive order. The governor expressed multiple times they wanted to get something that was codified, that was a little bit more permanent, and that could be turned on anytime there was some kind of emergency that required prohibited in-person attendance. This statute, their teleconference was allowed prior to COVID. I know it's hard, it seems like forever ago, but that was allowed, but it was somewhat onerous because you had to post and notice wherever council members were appearing remotely. So if you were in a hotel, you may not want to post and notice your hotel room and make, give the opportunity to the public to come to your hotel room to use it. So as a practical matter, most of the time the members weren't there, they just didn't appear. It was somewhat onerous in that way. The executive orders kind of made it easier. It gave exception to that and basically allowed remote meetings under certain circumstances. This is an attempt to make something more permanent. Like I said, it allows the cities to meet when the members, even if all the members council members aren't in the same location, without those onerous posting and notice requirements. In the event of a proclaimed state of emergency, it has to be something from the governor, not a local declaration of emergency. So that's the governor's emergency under the Emergency Services Act, which we still have in effect here since March 4th of 2020. And then essentially 2 or 3 other conditions have to apply. It doesn't have to be all 3, but one of them. One is when there are state or local officials that have taken measures, recommended or imposed measures to promote social distancing, or the legislative bodies determined by a majority vote that as a result of the emergency that's been proclaimed by the governor, meeting in person would present imminent risk to the health or safety of attendees, or if they're meeting just to make that initial threshold determination. Those are the circumstances in which not all members need to be meeting in person. What we're doing here, because there is a current state proclaimed state of emergency by the governor, because state and local officials are still at least recommending social distancing measures. And we have some examples in the staff report and resolution from Cal OSHA and the Amador County Public Health Department. We are able to meet under those circumstances. There are some procedural requirements that AB 361 requires that I want to make sure it's clear. And if you notice, this meeting is running a little bit differently. And staff's done an excellent job spending time to make sure that we can comply with AB 361. The public must have the ability to address the legislative body directly in real time. That's already been happening. This law says there are some cities that weren't doing it. They were only doing public comment through email, for example, but not direct real time. We have been doing that through the phone, so we're going to continue that. We've also added Zoom, as you can see. Information is being provided to the public on how to address the body. That's why our agenda lays out all the different ways they can connect. Some of the new requirements are I want to make clear is there's a 30-day shot clock. So we are now into this teleconference mode. We have to re-up these findings every 30 days, not the same days when you meet, and the same business days says 30 days, calendar days. This may mean that we have to call a special meeting. It could be via Zoom, it could be a quick one. We pass one consent type item to confirm these findings so we can stay in compliance. So just be warned that holidays coming, gaps in the schedule, we may have to call one or two. That's what that's about. And we'll make sure you public know when that time has come. There has to be in a city like Plymouth, which does not have a total period of time for public comment. We have speaker public comment, but not per item. The statute says we have to give a reasonable time for the public to be able to provide public comment and connect to all the various meetings. That's why the mayor has been opening comment, inviting people, having comment, going back around, giving it time to sweep a reasonable time to make sure nobody gets missed. And then if there are disruptions that essentially stem from us, either a broadcast going out or some other disruption that's within our control, we have to take a recess. We can't take actions during that sort of blackout period. Now, that's not to say if somebody has bad phone quality on their end, that doesn't apply. We can't control that. But if there is a disruption within our service, then we have to be mindful of it. With that, I don't want to belabor this, but are there any questions?
I'm reviewing all this, and the resolution number is not on the agenda. Do we need to add that in the motion to make sure that it's clear?
Is there a resolution number on the resolution now?
Yes.
Yeah, you can add that. It makes it out of the votes.
Right.
The agenda is still good because it describes what's happening. But yes, that would be fine.
Okay, I'm going to open up public comment first. Is there anyone here at City Hall that'd like to speak on this matter? There is no one on the phone line. For our participants on Zoom, if you hit the raise your hand button, if you'd like to speak on this matter. Maybe someone's calling a certain councilman. Trying to give this thing enough time. So I'm going to go back to the public here at City Hall. Would anyone like to speak on this matter? There's still no one that has called me on the phone. Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to raise their hand? Are we close to 1 minute yet?
Yeah, you're
Okay. I'm going to close public comment now. Questions, comments, concerns of the council? I'm starting down on this end. Councilmember Ackerman.
Nothing.
Councilmember Anderson. Okay, Councilmember Sim. Councilmember Kleinfelter.
I'm good. I just, I liked the fact that Frank addressed the requirement that this has to be renewed every 30 calendar days. We have to stay on it.
I have no questions, comments, concerns. Learning today. So we have a motion.
I make a motion that we approve resolution 2021-09.
I second that motion.
Roll call vote. Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Kleinfelter.
Aye.
Councilmember Ackerman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Amoruso.
Aye.
Mayor White.
Aye.
Thank you. 5-0.
Okay, 6.3, COVID-19 policy for employees regarding vaccination or testing.
6.2.
I mean, oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Threw me off.
My sweet,
I've
let's get
been
the meeting
off
done.
on- Okay, 6.2, resolution 2021-20 to declare an emergency repair under the public contract code and approving a construction agreement with Winchell and Sons Incorporated of Placerville in the amount of 39270, the emergency repairs of a water main on State Route 49.
Mayor and Council, this is a process for us to get the water line repaired on Highway 49. The staff report's pretty clear. They're putting the culverts in, piece of equipment hit our water line. AWA and our staff went out, fixed it temporarily. We asked AWA if they could fix it, and they said, no, beyond their abilities or their scoping. So we sought to get an emergency repair done. So we went out and we sought bids. We had 3 or 4 contractors, all local. We asked to come and bid. They came and listened to the bid scope of it. One submitted the bid that's not in front of you here. And ask that you, for Winchell and Sons, award that to them. Now, the other end of it is we've already filed between the Caltrans through the insurance towards the original contract. It talks about it here that essentially that contractor didn't follow the rules of 811, as we call it, call before you dig. They called before they dug, but they dug and they didn't do it properly. And we're confident that this will be reimbursed. So we need to get it fixed, because at any time that temporary, it will not help high water pressure south of town, because they won't have any water. So this is that's where it's at. Our engineers on Zoom, if in fact you had any engineering questions.
Okay.
But he's just standing by to stand by.
Okay, I'm gonna open up public comment. Is there anyone here at City Hall that would like to speak on this matter? Okay, and there is no one who is called on the phone. Is there anyone on the Zoom? Use the raise your hand button. And no one is using the raise your hand button. Okay, back here to City Hall. Is there anyone here at City Hall that would like to speak on this matter? The phone still has not rang. And is there anyone on Zoom? Use the raise your hand button if you'd like to speak now. Okay, there was no emails, text, carrier pigeon. Okay, I'm going to close public comment. So we'll start down, I'm changing it up. I'm trying to stay awake, guys, sorry. We'll change it up on down to this. And council member sends questions, comments, concerns.
Rich mentioned only one bid came in for the repairs.
Yes, only one.
And
We did send it out.
four were asking.
Contacted all local.
Who made the quick patch job?
AWA and our guys.
They did. And they're not confident to hold.
Oh, no, it's bands around the pipe that holds it together while
The coupling around or something that.
very temporary.
Only one bid. Yes,
Well, but we give the opportunity, when it's an emergency one, you don't send out the bid board.
right.
That's where we normally do. You'll hear about that in a little bit. But yeah, we send out before we call them and said, please come and bid. And they chose not to.
As Caltrans admitted to their situation. No.
No,
We have
they're cooperating and providing us with information that's required, and we've done the application for the claim. They'll follow their procedure. It'll go back to the general.
Thank you.
Questions, comments, concerns, Councilmember Kleinfelter?
I think Rick's addressed my concern because I didn't see specifically Caltrans mentioned in the staff report. I saw the subcontractor for Caltrans in the staff report, and I wanted to be assured that our issue was directly with District 10 Caltrans, because they're responsible for their subcontractor. So if if we're good with that and we've got everything rolling along.
In the staff report, first line says the contractor working for Caltrans.
Right.
But, yep, they're on.
Okay, Councilmember Ackerman, questions, comments?
Nothing.
Nothing. And I'm, yeah, we have to get it fixed. Like water.
All right.
So, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to set the bid and pay to have the water fixed.
There's a resolution number.
No, sorry, resolution 2021-10.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Roll call vote. Councilmember Sim.
Aye.
Councilmember Kleinfelder.
Aye.
Councilmember Ackerman. Aye. Vice Mayor Russo.
Aye.
Mayor White.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, now we're getting to 6.3. The COVID-19 policy for employees regarding vaccination or testing.
Mayor and council, at the request of council members Kleinfelder, research and brought back council policy for city employees vaccination testing. Due to the labor aspects of this request, we did have assistance from the city attorney and his firm to draft the policy that protects the rights of the employees, which was stressed to us that we want to make sure we did that, and also still maintaining the needs for the city of Plymouth. We have attached the draft policy for this. This would, if you approve it, would be effective for them to return proof of vaccination or the proof that they have tested October 14th. The cost we hope will be zero. We have information from the county. We contacted them. They said tentatively we'll be able to get test kits. So the employees, if there are any, will be tested here. We'll send them in. We'll get the results, and then it'll be filed. None of this will be made public. We are not sharing with anybody who it is, what they have. This will be treated as a personnel issue, and will be put in the personnel file under a medical area, which would not be examinable by anybody other than legally required by law. So we do not have a labor union to interfere with this. We did research with other cities, and that was a big concern. So you would have to meet for because it's a job condition. We believe it's a good policy. I think you've got all the needs of it, and it was legally obtained. And so we know that it's on good standings.
Okay, I'm going to open up public comment. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak on this matter at City Hall? Okay, there is no one on the telephone. And if there's anyone on Zoom, you can use the raise your hand button. Speak now. Okay, we're going to go back to City Hall again. There's no one. The phones, no one is called in. And back to Zoom, use the raise a hand button if you'd like to speak. And is there any emails, text?
No, sir.
Okay, I'm going to close public comment. Questions, comments, concerns, Councilmember Sim? Questions, comments, concerns, Councilmember Kleinfelder?
I just wanted to thank staff and the mayor for taking this seriously. Some of these mandates have been done by some of the largest companies in America, and it seems to be getting better results than all of the bribing people ever has. So, and this is kind of a personal issue to me, because if some of these issues get worse, I will be more comfortable calling in. So thank you.
Questions, comments, concerns, Councilmember Ackerman?
I just also want to thank city staff and the law firm for putting this together. I think it looks great. I am had actually hoped to maybe perhaps be the first employee to submit my proof of vaccination, but I forgot to bring a copy tonight. But otherwise, it looks great. Thank you.
I hate.
Oh, you're gonna beat her to the punch.
I would hate to burst your bubble, Councilor Radcliffe, if you're not an employee.
But I get this paycheck.
It's a token of
The
our
censor's a
appreciation.
boy.
This is a stipend.
Was primarily reported to Employment Development Department, so that's a little bit of a break.
Councilmember Amoruso.
Nothing.
My only question is with a policy like this, and forgive me for being part of the private sector, but Workman's Comp contacted us today with a bunch of emails on this. How does this work or jive with all that? Does this help? Or does it even matter?
Workers' comp is very clear. If it's a COVID issue and stuff like that, then we fill out the form for our workers' comp, which is our risk management group, and then they take over. They tell us what to do. Now internally, we have, and we've used this, if we have an employee that is determined to have a family member that has COVID or testing, then that family member, the employee, they stay home for the 10 days of what's required, and we still compensate them. They work remotely. If we knock on wood, we haven't had an employee that's had COVID, so we haven't had to deal with that. But there is the workers' comp element of that, and they deal with whether or not they're vaccinated or not. Or that element. We don't, but it's there. I mean, private people, you probably you are one. Then you're insurance company, you're a workers' comp.
It was, I don't want to make light of it, but it was real funny that opened up the company email today and it was just boom, 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 COVID-19. I'm like, wow, isn't this ironic? So sorry, I went to ask that, had to. So, okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll move that we approve the proposed COVID-19 policy for employees regarding vaccination or testing.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call vote. Councilmember Stone.
Aye.
Councilmember Kleinfelder.
Aye.
Councilmember Eckerland.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Amoruso.
Aye.
Mayor White.
Aye.
Thank you. 5-0.
Last but not least.
Huh?
Last but not
I
least.
hate to do this. I gotta use the boys' room, so I'm gonna pass the meeting over to.
We can take
our
a
vice
break.
mayor.
Take a break. Take a
Okay,
break.
we're gonna take a 5-minute
Because
recess.
this one might take.
Yeah, we're gonna take a 5-minute recess.
And as a reminder, Zoom is still live and records live, so. Hi.
Mike's on.
Raise your hand. That's right. I think we're at.
That's where we are.
No, but
They have nothing to do. Here it is. By us.
okay, I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, no, they don't. We talked.
Oh, they've all got calls while they're here.
Yeah, they can respond. They were here for the water leak. Don't let that fool you. Yeah. I want to show you that water.
Well, it seems then it's gonna move forward.
Yeah, we talked to them. Oh, yeah, we would do that for kids and elderly and stuff like that, not counting John.
Most of the stuff.
We moved John towards
Most of it, no.
So I thought, now that we see today that not offering all 3 vaccinations pop-ups. Before it was 1, got this one done. Now it's all 3, and they're going back to the minor. Seems to me.
Yeah, county public has a lot of pop-up vaccinations. And the Victors Association actually organized an ag worker
That's
foundation,
really
and they got the Johnson.
I mean, and I didn't.
Because you might only see that.
Right, so that's what Jack decided, that would be, and the public health decided that would be the best.
I think without disclosing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm waiting for my update. I'm 6 months out now from
I can take
my
mine.
shot.
I have a Johnson. When they, 6 months, when they say, hey, it's available.
What my job, I'm really hoping that they do it soon. Katie's. So, the Johnson and Johnson is waiting.
No, I know it's.
The Pfizer was presented today for down to 5.
Is that right?
Yes.
So I have 5 grandchildren. One of them's already, she's. The other one's, I'm waiting to see his parents. You know, and we've already talked about it.
But anyway.
Oh, yeah. Well, the public schools government already required, they want to go to school. If it, as soon as they approve, cut down to 5, they have to have a shot.
Bilirubin, all those shots. It's all have marks.
Oh, I have that.
That's
I was part of the generation that didn't have them. Yeah, my.
What, do you want me to?
Yeah.
They just learned how to stream.
Yeah, it was all
We had the
mixed up.
airplanes. Sugar.
I had the. Or no, the polio was a squeeze little gel thing.
By the way.
I have a guy at my office.
I'm sure.
You have the actual polio.
Oh, wow. Doing the training.
See pictures of the kids in the race, right? You don't have. I die from a shit. Yeah. I was 3 years old. Quite bad.
My grandmother was born in 1899. She was one of the survivors.
Stacy's grandmother just passed away.
Yeah.
It's funny,
Let's go with you. Let's go with you. Take, years ago.
who, So now he's trying to tell me, oh, it's the market, it's the market.
Oh my God.
You know, we can put in your.
Don't you tell me, you survived everything, you'll be
I
fine.
know, you know, I heard this. There you go. I was like, let's go. There's no the market. I'm like, okay.
There's no fix to it.
I think that's a meme. A meme.
Ready, Peter?
Peter's coming, yeah, we just. Higher, you know. I'm talking about citizens.
Yeah.
Okay, are we back from recess? I think everyone's finding their spot. Okay, 6.4, report and update on Lakeville meeting of September 16th, 2021.
Mayor and council, this is an update from the last direction that we had from you to go on September 16th to participate in the Lakeville meeting, where they specifically had an agenda item for their resolution 2021-10. The mayor and I attended. We attended it remotely, obviously. The whole meeting was done remotely. And also, I wanted to acknowledge that during the meeting, there were other council members present based upon what you could see. But there was no acknowledgement of them. They didn't make any comment. But so we do know that there were other council members that heard what took place. The meeting was, I think, fairly well attended. If you look at the number of people that were there, and the specific issue was whether or not the sphere of influence for the AFPD was appropriate. Our mission to go there was to tell them that we wanted to be assured that this is a clerical responsibility of LAFCO to check a box to make sure the sphere of influence are done in the county for fire agencies. We also want to make sure that all the information that we had from LAFCO is accurate. We believe it is, as far as their purpose. We also want to confirm that this was not directed to, originated by, or brought to the attention of LAFCO by AFPD. It was not. This is something that AFPD did not request to do. This is something that was brought by LAFCO as part of their responsibility. During this meeting, we made it very clear. I'm going to be diplomatic as best I can. A lot of bad information in the community by people in the community that were uninformed, that did not attend the meeting that we could tell. And they did not attend this meeting. They just put out stuff to get people thinking and probably to stir some pots. So we went very aggressively to make sure that if they were right, we helped defend this community. And if they were wrong, we pointed out that they were wrong. So during this particular meeting, we made it clear that we want to make it clear to the LAFCO board that they do not control who is or is not our fire department. We made it very clear by sending them a copy of our contract. There was some public information out there that was put out by citizens that we were not giving LAFCO any information. We had sent them days before information. We had sent them a copy of our contract. We had said to give it to every board member. We acknowledged with those board members they had it. And the reason is we want to make sure that that board realized that the fire department that this city chooses is our choice, nobody else's. This council decides, and in our contract, it says very clearly, we will have a fire department. We choose as a city, as a council, to choose who will be that fire agency, and we have chosen AFPD. When that was done, they entered into a contract that was renewed with very strong conditions in it, that at any time that if we don't like their services, we can say this contract is over, and that is a 12-month process. It's not like an eviction notice, but you got to have time. You just don't start a fire department. But regardless, we also made it very clear we're very happy with the services of the fire department. They respond in a timely manner. They are good at what they do. They help mutual aid. They go to other agencies. They go automatically without being asked by agreement, and they go by mutual aid as a result of some very large, devastating fires that's happened in the state. They also sent people there. We also have within our sphere, if we need, we have the other area fire agencies that respond here and assist. We've seen the other fire departments here working, and Crashes primarily is where we end up seeing, and we'll see Ione here, or we'll see Sutter Creek, occasionally a Jackson person, but we have a fire agency that does what we as a city have contracted with them to do. So to go through this, part of the problem with this whole LAFCO aspect is that it hadn't been done for 20 years or prior where it was supposed to have been done, so they're playing catch up. And I don't blame them. You know, they got to get it done because there's a box that needs to be checked, and plus the executive director is leaving. She's done. They're looking for a replacement. I think she would like to have a clean plate for that person to come in. Don't know, but that's my impression. When we attended the meeting, we made it clear that we would like to be treated like Ione and Jackson. When you read the sphere of influence report, it talks about some special districts that are exempt, but also talks about that Ione is not in anybody else's sphere of influence. It's their own. Jackson's is in their Jackson's because they have fire departments. Sutter Creek is different because that's a district. And then AFPD has a large area, and Plymouth is in that area by contract. Before we can even say that, we had a board of director, one of the directors from LAFCO, or we got that, he took the wind out of our sails. He said, I don't know why Plymouth isn't on their own. And we agreed and we talked about that. And the end result was that the general impression was that when they do vote on this, when they take it and take action, Plymouth will be out of that sphere of influence. Included. We'll be a little white spot like Jackson and Ione is on the map. Part of the other aspect of this was the MSR, which by the way was approved and already done by their resolution and approved by their board. And we talked about why we didn't know about that. We were never sent a questionnaire. That's how that's done. There's a questionnaire sent out. It's probably sent out to AFPD, answer these questions. It's sent out to the county, answer these questions. But we never got it. And they couldn't answer why that was. It's just, we're just not on that list of survey, but we weren't there. The information in the MSR, as pointed out by a couple of citizens in town, they took information that was there and they interpreted it wrong. The citizens did. Not that it was bad, they just interpreted it wrong. I made it very clear, and this is probably the longest staff report I've ever written. And I did it because the information was so grossly wrong that it caused discontent within the city. And that did nothing but deteriorate what was happening within the community. We had people arguing about something that they didn't have information on, and they were using a social platform where there's no accountability. So real quickly, I went through and highlighted it for everybody here, and I'll do it just briefly. On page 1 of the boundaries, it clearly says areas outside of AFPD bounds, 5 cities and territories within 4 districts. Were one of those 5 cities. They already have us out of it. In the MSR, it says 5 cities, we're one of the 5, or more. We were included in it already. So the question about it being included in the sphere probably is more semantic, citizens said that more than anything else, it's just part of it. The second one is that page 5, the district is not a land use authority. It does not hold primary responsibility for implementing growth strategies. They do not. The fire department has no say about growth. Now, we do contact them. We do consult with them. EIRs will contact them about issues, but they don't have a board that votes on what you folks do with your land. What's in our city is decided by this 5, no other 5. Annexations, that's done by LAFCO's board, but it comes still to you folks for permission to enter the city. No one ever wants to exit the city. Right? So that was wrong. There is no land grab. I read that I don't know how many times on social media that it's a land grab, it's a land grab. I don't think so. They can't create land. They can't grab land. They can't come in. Now, the land grab they're talking about may be service areas, and that's a fire issue. It's nothing to do with the city of Plymouth. We have our boundaries. We have our sphere of influence. Nobody tells you guys what you can and cannot do with that. 6 is the revenues. This is the one that I thought was the most interesting, is that AFPD collects developmental impact fees, DFI, to fund additional fire protection facilities and equipment to meet the increased demands inherent in new development. That's absolutely true. Not in the city of Plymouth. The county board passed a resolution, and they made reference to it. The county board passed a resolution that said, AFPD, if a development happens in the county and there's impact fees, we'll make sure that you are part of that impact fee structure. That's between them and the county board of supervisors. City of Plymouth, when we negotiate through a developer's agreement or the impact fees, those impact fees are collected and 100% controlled by you 5. Nobody can come in and say, well, I'm with the fire department, I want this money. They can come and ask for things, they can come and submit a request, they can come in and say, we need to update our fire station or whatever falls within that contract. And they can also come and plead a case. But you 5 still decide what that impact fee is used for. Nobody else. And what really kicks me is there's a letter going around that is 100% wrong in the math. People make this stuff up. The impact fees that Plymouth charges is $3,125 per home. That's what we charge. Somebody came up with a dollar amount that was less. It was wrong, but it's not gospel out there. And I get people, well, are you sure? Pretty darn sure, because it's in writing here. This is what we collect. And we have it in the bank. We have a criteria for fire. And it's gonna be, someday, we're gonna have to build a fire station, another one. That's what impact fees are for. When Zinfandel Ridge impacts the rest of the community, that's what we do. Yeah, remember, the fire department can come to us and say, oh, we have an impact because of these residents on our community. You five will decide that, not AFPD. The other element of this is that there are, page 6, revenues. AFPD is negotiating an agreement with specific collect, distribute, and payment of funds of Shenandoah Ridge. That special public safety assessments, which is part of the development agreement. One, we had a conversation with AFPD when I first got here about this is where we're at, this is what we do. I believe the fire chief was new at the same time. We were catching up as to what is what. That is not negotiations. That's meeting, conferring, that's figuring out what it is. And there are assessments. And those assessments are different than an impact fee. The people at Zinfandel Ridge, I think two of you know, you pay an assessment to a special district. That also takes care of your road. That takes care of police services if there's something special. Takes care of weed and feed, your trees, and there is an element for fire. Same thing. They don't get to negotiate that. We did through the developers agreement through the county. If they need that money, they come to you five. They don't say, have to give to you. There's no negotiating. That was done a long time. These funds are there. Finally, going all through this stuff, I have to stress that there's a lot of misinterpretation of the LAFCO MSR. If they could have done it over, and I talked to them, I said, could you go back and make these corrections? And they said it was a snapshot in time. Doesn't mean a thing, really. It's something you put on there. They hadn't updated it for a long time, and they did, and they could update it tomorrow. It's a snapshot. Number 14, the infrastructure. AFPD lists 5 stations across the county, 2 of which are in Plymouth. Can any of you tell me where the other one is?
What is it?
Across the street.
In the city limits of Plymouth.
No, Willow Creek.
It's not in the city limits of Plymouth.
No, Willow Creek, down on Highway 16.
Could be. Yeah, not across the street. The walls aren't there anymore.
Well, it was.
But so, but they say it's Plymouth. So they say it's Plymouth primarily because of the zone improvement plan that we have. Any of you know what the zone improvement plan is? That's the problem with misinterpretation of information. If I say zone improvement plan, everybody here is so, yeah, we got that zone improvement plan. It's the zip code. ZIP stands for zone improvement plan. I have yet to meet anybody, including Michael, who's pretty smart, that knew what zone improvement plan was. They don't have 2 stations in Plymouth. They have 2 in the zip code. But it's misinterpreted. I have people call me, where's our other fire station? Why aren't we in control of it? Blah, blah, blah. We have 1. It's right here. It's maintained. It's staffed. They respond from it. They're open to the public. We have 1. They do a good job, and that's all part of the contract. I put that in there because I just wanted to illustrate how people in the public give such bad information, become the experts, and they don't ask. All they have to do is come here and ask the council to participate. Doing this in public and doing that stuff did nothing but create a storm that was uncalled for. Finally, the correction, we asked them to correct it. They said that wouldn't be, they could, but it really isn't something that they would normally do. It's not within our control to make them do that. Our conclusion is that Plymouth is now more aware of the LAFCO work. They now know we're here. We have found out that they were sending the information to us, but not to us. They were sending it to the Stoddard. You know, there's no email for her any longer. We have fixed a lot of things with this. So there are good things that are coming from, especially public notice. There will be a meeting. Their board recognized that we were upset, I think. Mr. Mayor, I want to talk for you, but I was just as passionate then as I am right now. This was a lot of waste of time. That this board, I think, recognized that it could have been handled very easily just by asking questions of maybe the right people. On the next LAFCO board meeting, their board recognizes that the fire chiefs and 1 member of our staff need to get together. It's a workshop, and they're going to talk about sphere of influences because Jackson thinks theirs needs to be a little different. So is this agency, and we are going to go there to protect our little sphere. We'll be there. That's a staff member will attend that. And we will then come back after that, report what that was. And then there's one more LAFCO meeting in November, and at that meeting is where they'll vote on this, and I believe, I don't want to put anything in their mouths, I believe they will at that time recognize Plymouth as being their own sphere of influence, like Jackson and I own. And that we still have the greatest fire department, we still have great firefighters, we still have great response times. If our house is on fire, they're there quickly, medical aid. That we have all that. Should have never been the question. And as long as we have a contract in place, and we're meeting both sides of it, this right here is again, it's unfortunate that it blew up to where it was. So the staff report was long. I'm kind of passionate about it because they called everything from a liar to defending, not defending the city, but defending AFPD, that I only love them and I don't, because I used to be in law enforcement. 100% wrong. And if you folks believe that, you're wrong. I fight for this city for what it's supposed to do, and I protect the rights of the city by using the contracts, by using your direction and your policy. So, end results, that's the update. I'm sure the mayor might add to it, and that we are letting you know that we're going back, and there really is no action unless you direct something to us, that we will continue to be as we will protect our rights as best we can. And we still want, and I'm still going to say, because the fire chief's here, is that I'm very proud of our firefighters. I'm proud of this agency. And if that ever get mixed up with this, shame on you. And it's not you people, other people. So there you go.
I'm gonna go to public comment, of course, first. With all that being said, just, I know we put it into the record during the approval. I just want to make sure that we got this email from Don Ackerman. Don is here. I don't know if you'd like to speak on the matter right now or you're good. So I'm going to open up public comment here at City Hall. Yeah, Chief White.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor White, members of the council, Walt White, Fire Chief, Amador Fire Protection District. First, I'd like to say on behalf of the men and women of the Amador Fire Protection District that we're very honored and humbled to be the service provider for the city of Plymouth. We've been doing so by contract since 2010, and the contract actually isn't up for renewal or expiration until 2030. But as the city manager mentioned, both sides have out clauses should they choose to exercise them for performance or other issues. With that, I just wanted to provide a little bit of clarification regarding some of the information that we had heard and was out there. And then I wanted to answer any specific questions you may have. But what the city manager said is correct. Amador Fire Protection District didn't do anything to initiate this LAFCO action. This is a standard procedure of theirs, and they're required by statute to adopt sphere of influences for cities and special districts. We're a dependent special district, which means that our boundaries are exclusively within Amador County, and all of those unincorporated areas of the county outside of the cities and other special districts. So procedurally, LAFCO chose to do our sphere last because it would be what's left. And nothing has essentially changed. It's just the formal adoption process hadn't occurred and needed to occur per statute. I don't know if I've worked with a more competent, ethical, and professional person than Roseanne Chamberlain. The majority of the information that's in a municipal service review, which typically is done about every 5 years, that's the goal. I think it was 7 years since our last one. The majority of that information is self-reported by the agency, the district. And this sphere of influence wasn't for the city, it was for the fire district. So the misinterpretation of information with the city being included in that zone, although depending on which map you looked at, you could clearly see there's a color differential and there's a identification that it is its own incorporated city. But I can see how public could get confused by the map or how there could be some misinformation. But what I was a little disheartened by was that only one member of this community took the time to send me a Public Record Act request and seek accurate, official, and substantive information on this matter. And I think a lot of the misinformation and everything could have been corrected or clarified more quickly. As the city manager mentioned, LAFCO is going to have a workshop on the 28th. I believe it might actually, what's that?
21st.
No, it's been moved. It's been moved to the 28th, and I believe that, and that will be at the County Administration Building in the Board of Supervisors chambers. I will have to confirm whether or not that's, open to the public, but most LAFCO actions are publicly noticed, open to the public and transparent. Our municipal service review, like all others, because prior to this, every other fire district in this county had a sphere of influence adopted without question, without comment, without opposition by their governing boards and by the LAFCO commission, the LAFCO board, until ours. And with all the other ones defined, our area as a dependent special district was what was left. With that being said, that, our municipal service review, like all others, was the draft of this was posted and there was a public comment period. No public comment was received during that period of time. And we do understand that there could be email issues or people that may need to be aware or notified may miss the information. If so, I know that's entirely unintentional. The process is meant to be public, open, and transparent. After there was no public comment, the LAFCO board voted to approve the municipal service review for the Amador Fire Protection District. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. I'd also just like to say, as a first responder, I applaud the city's actions tonight in adopting a responsible employee or COVID vaccination policy. So thank you.
I just want, before we move on, since you're standing there, I just wanted to be clear that everyone in this community appreciates AFPD and all the hard work. And I don't think this agenda item is particularly about AFPD. It's about actions that are being proposed by LAFCO and how we're included on a map. And I think I'm also not being included in the conversation regarding that. So thank you for coming.
Okay, no problem. I appreciate that. And Mayor White, it's good to see you under better circumstances this time than the last time we ran into each other. So
Yeah.
I just want to quickly mention that, the Caldor fire is nearing total containment, and that was the biggest threat to our communities here in Amador County in 6 years since the Butte fire. And as much as we're relieved, there are still some large active fires in the state, and the KMP fire today. There were 4 firefighters who were seriously injured in a tree falling incident.
Sorry but we can't veer on, even though it's good information, we can't veer into general public comment.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I just want to add, again, I want to thank you for your time today. Not everybody is aware, but Chief White gave up a good portion of his afternoon and met with my husband and I appreciate our conversation. So thank you for that.
Thank you, and I appreciate you seeking the information directly from your fire service provider.
Is there any more public comment here at City Hall? Okay, the phone is still dead.
Don't say that
Anyone?
around them.
Huh?
Don't say that around them.
Okay. On the Zoom, if you want to speak, raise your hand. Okay, we'll go back to here at City Hall. Is there anyone that would like to speak during public comment? The phone is still off. And back to Zoom. If you want to speak, raise your hand. Or push the raise your hand button, I should say. Okay. No text, emails. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns, Councilmember Simmons.
I just wanted to chime in and say thank you very much for telling your story, and I learned a lot about what you just said, as well as our city manager. You both clarified this thing very well. Thank you very much, both of you.
Councilmember Kleinfelder.
Okay, it sounds like, and I did have very good feedback after that LAFCO meeting about the representation that you really carried the water during that meeting, and I really appreciate it. What I am concerned about is just having assurances that the map will be changed to a service area, and I'd like something a little bit more concrete than that. I have spoken to Mary Ann Ackerland because she is the representative for LAFCO and I am the alternate, that we could make ourselves available to express the council's wishes and policy statement if we were provided direction. If that way, I just really need for us not to take things that other agencies might be doing lightly, especially with LAFCO, that could have talked to us and said, you know, let's figure out how we should provide your information on this map. Yes, AFPD is servicing under contract the city of Plymouth, but the city of Plymouth decides the direction of that and always will. So they even if they included it on the map with a different color and then provided a footnote that it was a service area by contract, so it was more clear, I think that would have been incredibly helpful. So, I'm just looking for help from the council in how you feel about it.
Okay, Councilmember Akron.
Again, I just want to echo what's already been said. I don't think this was ever an issue about the quality of AFPD services. In the short time that my husband and I have lived here, I'm happy to say that we've never had to utilize your services. But hear nothing but great things about AFPD. So again, as always, thank you for your service. I do think that regarding the MSR, when there was an opportunity for public comment, I do think that it was unfortunate that we didn't bring up some of these issues then, and that's water under the bridge. Listening in on that LAFCO meeting, I was one of the council members that was also on Zoom. However, I was fairly distracted during that time and only had other stuff going on. But I do remember one of the members requesting that we submit something in writing. And so I think that's important that the city follow up on that and that we put it in writing, that we would like to be removed from the SOI. What else? I think that there are some things that need to be addressed in writing. I agree with Councilmember Kleinfelter that I'm happy to work with Councilmember Kleinfelter on that and help with something in writing, but I think that's really important. I don't see everything that has happened as a waste of time. In fact, and I know it's taken up a lot of staff time. I've invested more time in this as far as educating myself on it, asking questions, reading things. And I think every minute that I have spent on that has been worth it. So I have a different take on the members of the public who have been bringing this up as an issue or bringing up some issues. While I don't necessarily agree with everything that has been said, I think the discussion has been important, and I encourage members of the public to continue to speak up and they're involved in local government. And I think that's what we should all want. We don't always have to like the way the messages are delivered. But I know when I campaigned, when I decided that I'd give this a shot, one of the things that I knew is it wasn't always going to be pretty. But I try to do my job by listening to what is being said, not necessarily how the message is being delivered, but what is being said, and then try to learn everything I can so I'm fully informed. So I'm going to encourage the public, keep on reaching out to us. However they feel they need to do it is not up to me to decide. I'm going to listen no matter how they do it. And then the workshop, I would be interested in knowing if that's open to the public. That's all.
To you and I.
Councilmember Russo.
I don't have a whole lot to say. Thank you, Chief White. Thank you, Rex, for, sorting this out. When this first came to us, we were kind of blindsided by it. I said that night at the meeting that I would reach out to the Chief White the next morning, which I did about 7:30 in the morning, and talked to him all the way to work, which he was blindsided by this whole thing. He had no clue what I was talking about, because he was gassed. He was like, "What are you talking about? What is going on?" I'm like, "I'm just telling you what we were told last night at the meeting." And so, from that point on, then he's worked with Rex, worked to get this whole thing resolved. I think, to make sure that we're solid. Thank you guys. That's all I got.
My, I guess 2 cents, and I'll try to keep it on track and keep it on the rails that it needs to go. The tough part about this whole thing is I don't think it's really an AFPD, other fire department things, and it's almost kind of seemed like it's gone into that spectrum. We're trying to figure out the LAFCO thing. With that being said, Chief White just mentioned something about seeing me on better circumstances. That's the nice part about small community is when you are in an emergency, you do see the faces that you recognize. With that being said, because I didn't feel that it wasn't a PD or certain, I'm not gonna lie, I know Chief Mackey at Ione very well. I see him almost every day, and he's like, "Hey, blah blah blah, the LAFCO meeting." I said, "I don't want to talk about it." I mean, I was just about as straight up as I was. Like, I don't want to talk about it. We tend to forget that those services that you gentlemen provide, I don't want to say we take them for granted. Sometimes we just take them for granted. Hey, there's Chief White, and that kind of thing. And I think our kind of big thing is staying focused on the LAFCO part of it. When it comes to the contracts that we have with our own fire, our own sheriff's department, and all that stuff, we know we got good deals. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm going, we got screaming deals, and that's what makes this whole thing is because I think emotions are getting involved because we know the outside entities with everything, and our representation in the meeting. I mean, it was shocking because I'll mention his name, Councilmember Dominic Allen out of Ione. He took the wind out of mine and Rex's sails before we even got going. He said, "Why is Plymouth even involved in this?" And that was kind of the only thing that I really noticed is I was like, "Well, shoot, that just ended what, man, I was ready to go, and that just ended that, Dominic." So that's all I got to put in for my 2 cents. I mean, yes, Marianne, you represent us for LAFCO. I heard Mr. Vincent Guerra is gonna have raviolis. So, I think you guys should go get some raviolis.
Just for clarification, Marianne I'm Councilman. I felt they don't represent Salafco. They're your appointees.
Yeah, appointees.
You're not on the board,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So when it does come open, which they go through a whole weird selection process, when former Councilor Colbert left, we thought that would have been a seat change. That didn't happen. So, but just for clarification, when it comes up, that would the position is based upon the mayor's appointments if that continues.
But the council has appointed us to that a position of representation for this board. So we are saying we will carry that water if you were provided direction from the council.
So that, to add to that, if you, I did not hear them say, submit something in writing. They did something about that. That was during the MSR process, but if you do submit something in writing, we ask that the council members, if you want us to participate, you got to get it to us.
Right.
And then we will put it into the format and bring it back here, or however the council chooses. But if you're going to work on this, you have to have a staff member. Otherwise, it's not.
Has to be Frank approved.
Well, pretty much most of the time, but so if it's, if you choose to go that direction, we want to make sure we have continuity when you go to the meeting, match what we said and what the council's general direction was, and then you add whatever news to it. But it's real important, otherwise, it looks like you're switching your rowers in the middle of the race.
I think it would be prudent to attend, if it's possible, the workshop. And then provide, after the workshop, provide documentation that either the city is in agreement with the map that's worked out during that session or not. And writing up something before the workshop probably doesn't make sense because you may have to react again.
And we were gonna ask two questions of LAFCO. And they haven't answered me yet, but I did ask. One, will there be an agenda for this workshop? And who will facilitate? The reason is that I don't think this is about sphere of influence. I think this meeting is about 5 fire chiefs or 20 fire chiefs, or whatever the number of fire chiefs there are, getting together in one room and hashing out some of their obvious concerns that they may have with each other. Almost like a mediation without it being said that way. That was my feeling from that meeting. I don't know if you got the same sense.
I'll agree with you on that.
Yeah, it wasn't about Plymouth, it wasn't about Sphere, it was about the fact that we got fire chiefs. I think they were taking an opportunity to maybe do something good without, I don't know, but so if you choose to attend this, you may be surprised.
I have a mic drop. Let's get rid of Measure M. That gets rid of it all.
Well, yeah, so
Just
that,
saying.
who knows what that would be about, but just be prepared if you choose to go or directed to go, that it may not be what you.
Well, I have heard feedback regarding, while we had our concerns here in Plymouth about the way we were included in the map, I also have heard feedback about other agencies, and it wasn't about them not being recognized, but it was about their service area beyond that not being recognized in the mapping. So there's so it is a LAFCO and mapping, some discussion.
We may have helped open that can of worms.
Everybody's gonna get in the weeds and don't watch sausage being made.
Now look at me, I have nothing. I want to eat sausage right now.
Sausage sounds delicious.
Right now. Okay, so do we have a consensus?
I think we have.
And that's all we need.
Yeah.
That's all we need is direction and to attend with the intent of listening and, basically on the same level that you've already gone in, and then come back and let everyone know what we heard And
I hear what you're saying. We have gotten in trouble many times with it was consensus. I'm not quite sure how to do that. That's not a vote. You guys have this on here, so you could make this into a motion. You can make it very clear because consensus
Okay.
doesn't work for us much anymore. We've had people say, well, we had consensus, we were gonna bring this back. And I have nothing to show with that consensus. Just help staff. So either make a really strong consensus so we know.
Well, we can make a strong consensus.
Yeah, but
I
I
don't need to go as far as a motion, just say, I think we're all in agreement that we move forward with the way it's been done, yeah.
With the way Councilor Kleinfelder just described it.
Yeah.
Okay.
so
There's no wishy-washy there.
so for Maria's note taking, we're gonna make sure that's accurate on there. Is that by consensus, the council is that Mary Ann Packard and Valerie Kleinfelder as council members will represent this council at LAFCO from this point on. Is that what you're saying?
on this issue.
On this
On this
issue,
issue.
yeah, we already represent, but on this issue, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Yes, I consent to that.
Okay.
With that, I'm gonna adjourn the meeting.
No.
Huh?
Yeah.
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 it's over.
I'm gonna adjourn the-
Yeah, that's it.
Special meeting, you got nothing.